Hey everyone, this is Chris, MTGO's Rexstart, and welcome back for this week's episode of Show and Tell, the ongoing series where we take a look at the decks of the Legacy Tribal Wars format as they are played in the Tribal Apocalypse Player Run event every Saturday on Magic the Gathering Online. And this week we're going to start with, very appropriately, a Sneak and Show deck. For those of you not familiar with the Legacy deck, Sneak and Show basically uses sneak attacks and show and tells, both from the Urza block here, to cheat enormous fatties into play. And thanks to the rise of the Eldrazi set, the fatties available for those purposes have never been better. We have Kozilek, Ulamog, and Emrakul, basically the holy trinity of the Eldrazi. And we also have It That Betrays and Pathraiser, which is actually pretty good. Annihilator 3 and some evasion there, and pretty decent stats. So if you're going with the plan of just cheating fatties into play, these are a pretty good selection of Eldrazi to include. I can't quarrel with this at all. The decks that try to actually hardcast these and use Eldrazi drones and stuff might not use It That Betrays or Pathraiser, for instance, but anyways, I like this selection here. The rest of the deck is pretty simple. He's got 4 copies of Through the Breach and 4 copies of Sneak Attack, and the one Show and Tell. Show and Tell is kind of a prohibitively expensive card on Magic the Gathering Online right now, but it wasn't always the case. It's like 50 tickets now, but it was much less than that until this year when the whole Omniscience Grizzlebrand craze swept the Legacy scene. And he has 8 cantrips here to help him find whatever he's missing. So basically his ingredients are mana, and he does have some fast mana here, Ancient Tomb City of Traders. So mana plus enabler plus big guy equals win. Now it doesn't equal win on the spot because one of these guys on his own is not going to immediately win the game, but it will, assuming it comes out fast enough, and turn 2 is pretty reasonable given you have these guys, and you can either Seething Song into this or this plus an activation, or you can play the Show and Tell and drop it. So you're going to devastate your opponent's board position, and he's going to find himself pretty much unable to come back from that. So assuming everything goes according to plan, you win quickly, you crush your opponent, and he goes back into the lobby crying, more or less. Because if you lose to this deck, you never really feel like you were in the game. That's kind of the feel-bad angle of playing against this deck. But at the same time, if you're going to lose to a fast combo deck, at least it's a fast combo deck that kills you with flying spaghetti monsters. So it's the Timmy-ish, most Timmy of the fast combo decks in that respect. Now, what do you do against a deck like this? Well, there's not an awful lot. If you're control, you're pretty boned, because this deck, like ramp decks in that regard, just has massive inevitability over you. You don't have access to a sideboard with things like Ensnaring Bridge that could trip this up. So, I don't really think you have much of a game there if you have a control deck. But, I mean, again, you may have some really weird builder. If you have an Enlightened Tutor package or something like that, you may have some silver bullets to deal with this. I don't know. But anyways, there's that. If you're aggro, you're going to have to be pretty fast in order to race this deck, and that is your only option. You're just going to have to try to race this deck, and when he gets in his hit with these guys, you're going to have to hope that he did enough damage to himself with tombs. He gets in his hit with these guys, and maybe you've got a Fire Blast, you're sandbagging, and enough direct damage left or something like that to be able to finish him off. That's your best hope there, or that he stumbles on land or gets, a bad draw. Aggro control does seem like it would be a good matchup. Now, Nagarjuna did beat Romulos's Counter Slivers deck in the replays that we will see. However, at least in theory, that seems like a good match because you can get some early pressure down. If you're just sort of a generic aggro or mid-range deck, you have very little shot against this. You do, if you have the right kind of removal. Show and Tell is easier to answer because it doesn't give the guy haste. But these are much more difficult to answer. If you have something like a Diabolic Edict, instant speed, target player sacrifices, that would take care of any of these. Swords or Path would take care of anything except for the Emrakul. The problem with Swords is that it's going to gain him so much life on on any of these guys, that you're buying your opponent at least another turn or two to draw into something else just by casting a Swords to Plowshares on one of these guys. So that is sort of the, you're going to have to just try to guess when he's going for it and hold open the right kind of removal. If you are playing like a ramp deck or something yourself, you might be able to drop something off of this Show and Tell. I also used my Zoo deck in Legacy would try to fight these kinds of things with Knight of the Reliquary, pulling up Caracas, that sort of business. But again, the Caracas plan was always much stronger against Show and Tell Emrakul than it is against these, because you have to be able to have it in hand. If you are trying to use Caracas, remember to do it in the begin combat phase, because once they get to attack, they're getting their Annihilator triggers off. But if you do it before that, you can put the thing back into play with the sneak attack. So I mean, it's going to be, you're going to have to watch how much mana he's got left on this too. I mean, it's a very resilient deck. It's got redundancies in here. You're going to have a tough time. You can't really extract this and hope to win, because he's got both of these in here. If you had a lot of discard, maybe him to Turox and duress effects or Thoughtseize, you might be able to disrupt him enough as long as you get some quick pressure. And I think that would be the key to beating this deck. You're going to have quick pressure, and you're going to have either the counter magic or the discard effects to wreck his game plan long enough that you can just eke out a win. So I think it's a very challenging deck to play against. It has the potential to be extremely dominant, but you just don't see it that often, is the reality of it. So anyways, join me in part 2, and we will take a look at some replays where Nagarjuna is going to stomp some face with some mean-looking aliens.